A few years ago, when I was just 20, I found myself sitting in a small rented apartment, surrounded by stacks of paper, accounts to pay, and a note that looked more like a tool than a tool. At that moment, the feeling was that everything had collapsed. The money was scarce, the confidence in myself was shaken, and the projects in which I had invested months seemed to crumble before my eyes. But even in the middle of that chaos, there was a simple but powerful truth. I was still standing. Why? Because deep down I knew there was a way to success and it was up to me to find it. Many people believe that those who are already born with this gift, as if it were a genetic inheritance. Nothing further from reality. I came from an ordinary Jewish family, where my parents were simple and working people. My father traded building materials, my mother worked in an office. They have always taught me to value effort, to save and avoid unnecessary risks. I remember my father's words, "Son, be smart with money. Don't risk everything you have." My mother added, "Study, go to university, get a stable job." For a moment, I even thought they were right. After all, stability seemed safe, but something inside me burned with a certainty. If I followed this way, I would never find out what I was really capable. I wanted more. My first project was modest, an online idea that I thought could generate income. Naive, but sincere, I was Peely in that plan. He spent nights in clear studying, marketing, economy, accounting for every penny. However, the first months were disastrous. Sales did not take off, customers complained, and partners doubted my ability. One night, sitting alone in a coffee, watching the empty street, I'd ask myself, did I get to my limit? Didn't I just born to the business? It was then that I understood a fundamental lesson that would later become my savings. Success does not mean absence of problems, but the ability to act despite them. I began to study stories of people who had built fortunes, especially those of Jewish families who, throughout generations, have not only accumulated but multiplied resources. They not only made money, they planned, created strategies, and saw opportunities where others saw only obstacles. If they did it, I thought, why could I not? The first steps were the most difficult. Error after error, often on the verge of giving up, I would catch myself saying, enough, I'll close everything and look for something safer. But an inner voice insisted, no, you need to follow. You need to understand how this world works. A particular situation was marked in my memory. An important customer was about to close a contract of several thousand reais, but carelessness, I did not send the documents in time. When he called, annoyed, saying that I was not serious, I felt a complete failure. It seemed that months of work had been thrown away. Instead of discouraging, however, I wrote a personal message, apologized, and offered a bonus as compensation. To my surprise, he accepted. That little victory taught me something valuable. Sometimes it is our willingness to correct failures, not perfection, that makes us valuable in the eyes of others. At 20, I was on the edge of my first great achievement. She didn't come out of nowhere, nor fell from the sky. He came through mistakes, falls, sleepless nights, faith in myself when no one else believed. And it is this essence that I want you to absorb. The next part of my trajectory will reveal how small steps and unexpected decisions have turned a young man full of ideas into someone who can talk about millions not as a distant dream, but as a concrete reality. Most importantly, you will find out which strategies, mentalities, and approaches help me go through this path and how they can work for you as well. Because what comes next is not just about money, it is about how a life is built, how to make decisions, and how stumbling blocks become victories. If you follow until the end, you will not only take a success story, but tools to write your own. Now you know how I started my journey towards the first ML. But to be honest, this path was far from a straight line. In fact, I made so many mistakes that they would give content to an entire book. And it was precisely these misconceptions that became my most valuable lessons. Today, I want to share some of them and how I surpassed them. The first mistake: dive into projects without a plan. Between 17 and 19 years old, he thought a good idea was half the way. I remember launching a site to sell sports accessories, convinced that if the proposal were attractive, the money would come alone. It didn't come. I spent almost all my economies in design and advertising, but sales were practically null. The solution: I understood that success requires a detailed plan and market analysis. Before you start any project today, I ask, who is my client? What problem am I solving? Who are the competitors and how can I stand out? A plan does not guarantee success, but the lack of it guarantees failure. The second mistake: ignore financial discipline. At first, I thought that when the money arrived, it could spend comfortable, but with an unstable lays, each impulsive expense became a disaster. Once, I bought an expensive notebook and a designer chair, justifying that they were comfort investments. In fact, It was money that could have been used in advertising, courses, or salaries. The solution was to create a rigid budget. At first, it hurt. Each reel needed to be justified. But over time, I realized that discipline is actually freedom. Today, I can afford what you want because I learned to manage resources wisely. The third error, being afraid to ask for help. For a long time, I tried to do everything alone, thinking that admitting ignorance was a sign of weakness. It cost me months late. I lost contracts, committed accounting failures, and did not understand marketing nuances. The solution came when I realized that learning from others is not shameful but essential. I started to seek mentors, more experienced colleagues, and consolidated entrepreneurs. A single conversation with a successful entrepreneur opened my eyes to manage a team and attract customers. Now I always look for those who can teach me something new. The fourth error, procrastination and lack of discipline. I thought that working 3 or 4 hours a day was enough to succeed. Result, projects dragged for months, and some didn't even get out of paper. The solution was to establish a rigorous routine, planning every hour of the day. Even on days when motivation was missing, I took at least a small step. These steps, over time, have become great achievements. You can't imagine how discipline changes the results. The fifth error, do not value time. At the age of 18, I would spend hours with things that took me nowhere: social networks, purposeless encounters, endless discussions with friends about those who were right. I did not understand that time is a currency that, once spent, does not recover. The solution was to register as it employed every minute. Every day, I asked myself, does this approach my goal, or is it just a distraction? I learned to say no to what I did not add value to my growth, because in the end, time is the most precious resource we have. This understanding radically transformed my financial trajectory. It was the key that multiplied my income in dozens of times. Errors that almost ruined me. The sixth, ignore risks and fear failure. My first major negotiation almost collapsed because I did not consider the risk seriously. I was so confident in the success of the project that I invested everything I had, and a single mistake could lead me to bankruptcy. It was a reality shock. The solution? I learned to analyze every risk before acting. Today, every project has a plan B. Before making any decision, I ask, what can go wrong? How can I prepare? Fear is not an enemy, but a teacher. If used with intelligence, he teaches us how to anticipate problems and act more safely. The seventh mistake, lack of focus on the essentials. At first, I tried to embrace the world. I did marketing, sales, design, finance, and customer service at the same time. The result? I was everywhere and nowhere. The solution? I discovered the Pareto principle. 80% of the results come from 20% of shares. I started to focus my energy on what really moved my business and generated profit. The rest, delegated or automation. Focus is not doing any more. It is doing what matters. The eighth error, lack of patience. Many believe that financial success goes overnight. I thought so too. The first gains were small, and sometimes I was asked, why am I striving so hard? The solution? I understood that patience is one of the most valuable assets. Success is built step by step, day after day. If you are willing to work with consistency, even when the results take, they will come and will be lasting. The final lesson. Each error was a learning, every failure an opportunity to evolve. What became a millionaire at the age of 20 was not a magical idea, but the ability to analyze failures, correct routes, and move on. If you want to build the life you want, start looking honestly at your own mistakes. Write them down, study them, and create an action plan. Do not fear the false theme to inertia. My story is not about luck, but about turning errors into trampolines. This is not about what I won, but what I learned, strategy, discipline, and the art of learning from every stumble. Today, when I look back, I don't see defeats, but lessons that made me stronger, wiser, and financially free. 3 principles that changed everything. First, learn from your mistakes and correct them. Each fall is a chance to reinvent itself. If you fear making a mistake, you will never discover your true potential. At first, I failed constantly, but recorded each error, analyzed and adjusted. Over time, the failures were smaller and the more frequent successes. Second, discipline and planning are worth more than inspiration. Many think success comes from motivation, but the truth is that inspiration is just the kickoff. Whoever arrives far is the one who has discipline to perform, even when it is not in the mood. I planned every day, controlled budgets, studied the market. It was not easy, but it was the discipline that turned chaos into results. Third, risk without letting fear paralyze you. Fear is natural, but if you allow it to dictate your actions, it will never advance. I risked money, reputation, and time. I lost battles, thought of giving up, but the ability to get up, reassess, and move on to the million before 25. An unexpected discovery. Success is not built alone. Mentors, partners, and friends who believe in you are invaluable. Never underestimate the power of experienced advice or the support of those who hope for their growth. I tell my story not to brag, but to show a simple truth. You are able to more than you think. Yes, the way is hard. Yes, there will be mistakes and moments of doubt. But if you are willing to learn, correct, and persist, the results will surprise you. My million was just the beginning. Today, I still build projects, investing in knowledge and seeking new opportunities. And I want you to come with me. If you want more stories, practical tips on finance, business, and personal development, if you want strategies that really work, follow my content. Each new material will be even more valuable because I will share what helps me not to stagnate and create the life I have always dreamed. Finally, I leave a reflection. Success is no luck. It is a consequence of actions, decisions, and willingness to change. Money is not the goal, it is a tool. Dreams are not destinations, they are journeys. And if you are willing to walk, you will find out what you are able. Remember, each day is a chance to evolve, each step an opportunity to transform your life. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start today. Learn, analyze, risk, act. In a few years, you will be able to tell your own success story for those just starting. Thanks for accompanying this far. Your path begins now. And know, your life is in your hands and only you decide how it will be written.